Okay. All right. So for today's topic, it's gonna be about the programming process. So what are the things that needed to be done? Basically, this is called the programming development or program development lifecycle. It's a process on which a program is developed from start to finish, and the programming process is kanang the programming process needs to be followed properly for us to be able to produce quality programs. Okay, so again, the programming process is invented, if that's the right word, to make sure that every programmer or every programmer will be able to develop quality programs. So not just any program at least can work. No, it's not just that. It needs to be a program that can that that will last long, that will sell in the market, something like that. So if you have any questions, clarifications, please press the raise hand button on your Google Meet in the Google Meet, and or you can also send your questions here in our messages. All right. So previously we've discussed about the introduction to computer programming. So what is computer program, programming languages, types of computer programs, and uses of computer programs. And today we'll talk about the programming process. Alright, so the program process is called the program development lifecycle. Oh, by the way, is there any way you can turn on your cameras, guys? Please turn on your cameras while we're doing this class, and keep your cameras turned on throughout the duration of the class. Thank you. Alright. Kita ng kagwapo lagi. Especially you are all first year and not everybody has seen each other already, so just keep your cameras turned on. If wala man dyan, negative sa internet.
Sir, bulag ako ang internet, sir, mo turn on ko camera.
Sige. Katura mga wala yung problema sa internet, please keep your camera turned on. Alright. So again, the programming process is also called the program development lifecycle, or Pdlc. So please take note of this, because once you get to your 4th year soon, once you get to your 4th year soon, you will be doing your capstone project, and one of the methodological statement, I forgot the term, but one of the methodology is to select either of the life cycles that you will be using for your programming. So one of them is Pdlc, Program Development Lifecycle. It is a methodological way of developing a program. There are 5 phases in the program development, namely defining the problem, planning the solution, coding the program, testing the program, and documenting the program. Okay, so again, the Pdlc, or Product Development Lifecycle, is there to make sure that every programmer will be able to produce quality programs. To make sure that the program will work at its best, and to make sure that it will be able to perform in the intention or the purpose that it was intended, basically. So again, there are 5 phases: defining, planning, coding, testing, and documenting. So let's start discussing the defining of the problem. Defining the problem means identifying and analyzing the situation that leads to the problem. This is very important in finding a solution before the program is written. Data is collected as well as program requirements from the users to identify the problem and that the program is expected to resolve. Hold on, just one moment please. Sadali lang na ninawag. Hello? Hello, good morning. Okay sir, mo deliver mo ron? Na ako sa wa pa kabuk ang bagroy sir, unahan ra gamay sa Biko M ko, wala pa kabot sa bridge na ay gray nga gate sa wala. Nakas bridge? Sige, magawas ko sir. Sige sir, kay magawas ko. Sige. Sige sir. Alright, anyone, sorry, but please stand by. Nai-delivers kawas kadali. Kadali lang ha. Kadali lang.
Sige, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Sige, sir.
Shopee!
This is very important in finding a solution before the program is written. Data is collected as well as program requirements from the users to identify the problem to the program that the program expected to resolve. Alright, so the very first step in developing a program is to understand why is the program necessary in the first place. Alright, so when we develop a program, so we need to understand first why exactly that we need to develop a program, and is a program necessary to solve the problem, diba? Programs or computer programs are developed for a reason, that is to solve a problem. And however, in some cases, there might be some cases na mas maayo lang na traditional way na lang instead of using program. It's because there are different factors that will be involved. It could be either walay kuryente, walay internet, and the program needs kuryente and internet, something like that. So the very first thing that every programmers and developers need to understand is identify the reasons. Basically, defining the problem, identify the reasons why a program is necessary to solve that particular problem. So to identify the problem, system analysts typically look at these concerns. So how do we understand the problem? Here are some key questions. First, what is the problem? Second, how do people solve the problem currently? What is needed for the solution process? What is the expected output of the solution? And is a software solution a more effective way to solve the problem? Okay? So, imagine, wala pa ko ka experience ani before, but before naabot ang enrollment system sa NORSU, when I was still studying in NORSU Bais, na may system, gamit nato nga system ron na na sa akong time ko. But before that, I've heard a lot of rumors yun, that before the enrollment system was introduced or was used, grabe kadugay mahuman ang enrollment because everything is manual. No? First of all, let's talk about the processes involved in enrollment. So if you're first year students, maybe this is different from what you've experienced before. Kay ikaw ra mo musand og message sa after mo makapasar sa. Okay, who would like to share? I think lahi ng paagi ron last semester when it comes to enrolling first year. Who would like to share? How did you get to NORSU? Yan ang sa mga processes na involved.
Long processes, sir.
Go ahead, Rosales.
Kuan pa man, sir. Kanang first, kanang sa nga ani. Mo take pa man ka og kuan nila, sir, exam.
Exam, yung
magpaabot pa ka na sa kuan, sir, result ana. Kuan ba ka, qualified ba ka?
Okay, let's say nanay result, kay result, kabalo ka kapasar na ka. What's the next step?
Interview, sir.
Interview. So online naman na sa?
Yes, sir.
Online din. Pagkaman sa interview, mo na? Sa pailain?
Enrollment na, sir.
What do you do with the enrollment? Maghulat na lang mo sa?
Mag-process, sir. Or ano?
Ano sa process? Diyan sa niyo pag-process ang enrollment?
Kuan, sir, katong mga requirements kipang hatag nila.
Yung requirements.
Sa dalon niyo sa NORSU or?
Ipasa sa NORSU, sir.
Okay.
There po online, sir, send.
Online.
Oh, online.
Pwede po sa online na, sir.
Okay, so it's a little different from before. Pagsugod sa pandemic, ilang buhaton na ato kay basta na ato'y form, mag-fill out pa sila sa form, and dahil magpaabot na lang sa load slip. Maybe it's a little different now since we're already on the verge of going back to face-to-face. But anyway, before that, before katong wala, sa one time is taas kay migtalayan. So, eskwela mi, our process is katong first year pa ko sa same gyapon mo mubuhat og entrance exam. Then after siguro mga 2 weeks, sendan mi og text na nakapasar mi. So, ready na mi para enrollment. So, ang unang buhaton nato is, if I'm not mistaken, magtalay pa mi para makuha og load form sa enrollment load form sa registrar. As in, taas ka lang, mabot tag 2 hours in talay or more. Pag humanana, fill out ka sa form, then talay na po ka sa mga photocopihan. Talay na po ka sa photocopyan, dugay po kayo malarga, dugay kayo matulin, and after that, if ready na imunta ng mga files, I think mabalik na po ka sa register, talay ka sa cashier para sa bayad sa tuition, and then after lain na pong talay para balik sa registrar to submit your requirements. Sa taas kayo, grabe ang talay kag buntag, say maabot kag hapon or maybe abot kag hapon kag buntag. Sa ang uban mabtan pag pila ka adlaw during the enrollment. But that has certainly decreased, di ba? Ang time nga katong sa inyo nga enrollment and during the pandemic, medyo grabe kayo ang difference. It's because everything is done. It's no longer manual. Although na slight na touch of doing it manually, but more often than not, most probably automated na tanan. So that's why you just have to wait for your load slip. Although it will still take time. Pero you don't necessarily have to di na mo kinala magtala just like what we did and the other students before you. Alright? So that is the problem. That one of the problem in NORSU is the enrollment system. It will take a lot of time and it will take a lot of effort for both the students and the staffs of NORSU and the faculty. So how do people solve the problem currently? So let's focus on that problem. And the problema is ang enrollment madugay siya mahuman and students masigtalay. So how do people solve the problem currently? So the problem is wala gina talay, and to solve that, then the student will really have to take the queue, very long queue, and there might be some chances that they have to get back the next day. So that's the current solution. What is needed for the solution process? Unsay mga kinahanglan nun so that the time that it will take for the enrollment will be lessened, and then the effort will also be lessened. So that's why NORSU needs a system, an enrollment system that enables staffs to enroll the student much faster. Dapat mas madali, right? And that system should have a database for easier for the easier collection of data, something like that. And then what is expected output of the solution? The expected output is that the NORSU will be able to enroll students faster, easier, and can render results or can render data faster, something like that. And in a software solution, a more effective way to solve a problem? Yes. Okay, so that's the problem. That's the defining the problem. You need to understand what is the problem and how to fix it. Okay, and then the things that lead to the problem. That's very important as well. The things that lead to the problem. How do you eliminate those things? And is a software solution necessary or more effective way than the current solution? So mas masolve ba sa software ang problem better than the current solution? Something like that. Alright, that is just one of the example. Mga problem that a program has solved. That is the enrollment system and NORSU enrollment. So now that we have a more robust enrollment system, we are able to now that we have a robust system, we're able to process enrollment faster. Okay. Yan, naguba akong camera. Next. Planning a solution. This phase is also called designing of the program. Program design starts by focusing on the main goal that the program is trying to achieve and then breaking the program into manageable components, each of which contributes to this goal. Somebody raised their hands. Kinsa to? Kabantay.
Wala ata, sir. Napindot ra.
Napindot ra.
Sorry, sir.
It's okay. Alright, again, designing the program. It is setting a guide for what the program will do and how it will do it. Alright, so once you already collected all the necessary information about the program or about the problem, once you already collected all the necessary information needed about the problem and how to fix it, and if you've concluded that a software is really a better way of solving the problem, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to design a solution. You're going to design the program. Not exactly that you're going to create a program and then design it. No, you just have to plan how the program is going to work. The flow, ang iyang structure, and yeah, that's it. The structure and its flow. In that way, it would be easy for you to develop it on the next stage. So again, after you've already collected all the information needed, information about the problem, na-collect na niyo yung problem, you know what to do, and you have concluded that a program will fix the problem, then the next thing that you're going to do is to design or plan the solution. It's also called designing the program. You're going to design the program. Again, not in a way that you're going to create a program and then design it, put flowers to it, put ribbons to it. No, it's about designing or planning the program flow and structure. So what that means here, a program designing or planning the solution involves using the following planning tools. Again, it's not about designing the program itself, but it's just planning its structure and flow. Mong planahon ba unsay buhaton sa program? How does the program will do its job? And unsaon niya pag-solve ang problem? And we have two. Actually, there are more, but we're just going to discuss two of them. Program designing or planning the solution involve the following planning tools. First is we have flowchart. Next is we have algorithm. So let's start from flowchart. A flowchart is a step-by-step solution to a problem that uses symbols as representation of the processes. It consists of arrows representing the flow of the process and boxes and symbols representing the action in each process. So, kinsa nakita na o flowchart, and flowcharts look like this. Kinsa nakita ani before? Maybe experience it or maybe nakafamiliar na.
Wala pa, sir.
Alright. Nani siya usually sa mga offices. Nagani sa NORSU, wala pa mo kabisita ng NORSU. If mo ato mo sa cashier, naani. If mo ato mo sa registrar, naapon siya. So, or siguro ang medyo sure ko nga naa is if nakaadto mo sa water district. Okay. Dili kay ko tigsulod mga offices sa Bais, pero nakasulod ko one time sa water district sa Bais, and nasa like flowchart sa ila inigsulod nimo na kay makita nako kaayo nga board, and then naa sila mga flowchart. Napuni siya sa hospitals, clinics mostly. So basically it tells you the processes that needs to be done in order to achieve a task. For example, if sa NORSU, mubayad ka kung na flowchart sa NORSU, let's say, how to magkuha og QR, how to acquire ba term na? Mukuha ka og TOR, transcript of record, from NORSU. Na step-by-step procedures, and it is illustrated using flowchart. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you've seen flowcharts before, maybe nalimtan lang, but if next time if you're going to visit offices, mga offices nga nag-offer of mga services ba? Okay, especially government offices, most of the time na sila flowchart. And we'll discuss what exactly do you mean by circles, and then parallelograms, rectangles, so on. And then we'll discuss it one by one, and for your assignment this week, you're going to create a flowchart on your own. Okay, so a flowchart is a step-by-step solution to a problem that uses symbols and representation of the process. It consists of arrows. Okay, so naay siya arrows representing the flow. So flow of the process, and then boxes and symbols representing the action in each process. So again, arrows represents arrows represent the flow of asa gikan and asa padulong. And then these boxes and symbols representing the action. Okay, what needs to be done in that particular section? Unsay kinahanglan ning buhaton, it will be represented with boxes and symbols. And each of these symbols has their own meaning. So let's take a look at this example of a flowchart, which is calculating the sum of two numbers. So calculating the sum of two numbers, and this is the flowchart. The sum meaning, for example, the number 1 is 1 and number 2 is 2, then you're going to add 1 plus 2. Okay, that's what we mean by calculate the sum of two numbers. So this is the flowchart. First is start, and then as you can see na arrow down. That means the flow is going down from start to the next action, which is enter num1 or enter the first number. Na siya arrow. Hold on, let me. Okay. In this case, in this action, the user needs to enter number 1 or the first number. All right. And then ano po ilain nga flow padulong sa next step? That is enter number or second number. Alright, and after that, there is another flow to calculate the sum as num1, which is whatever the number entered here, and then plus num2, whatever numbers entered here. So for example, the first number is 9, and then second number is 8, and then here it will calculate 9 plus 8, diba? And maybe you notice num1 and num2, these are called variables because we don't know what the user will enter. So therefore, we will use variables to temporarily store those numbers that the user will enter. So for example, in this action, the user entered 9, and then in this action, the user entered 8. Then in this action, it will perform 9 plus 8 because we instructed the computer to perform num1 plus num2, right? And after that, the next flow is to display the sum, which is 17. Oops, sayop na, dapat end. Okay, so that is a flow chart. So we have circle or an ellipse going to the next action, which is a parallelogram that allows the user to enter a number, the first number, and then the flow continues to another parallelogram that requires the user to enter the second number, and then next to a rectangle that performs calculating num1 and num2, calculating the sum of num1 and num2, and then display the sum or display the result, and then end. It's not start but end. Okay, so that is the flow chart of calculating the sum of two numbers. Again, later on we will discuss the meaning of these symbols. In the meantime, let's proceed to the next example. Find whether or not there is a profit or loss by comparing the income and the cost. Okay, so in this is the problem, and we're going to create a flowchart to solve this problem. Okay, so the problem is we're going to find whether or not ni-gain ba ta og profit or loss by comparing the income and the cost. Okay, so for example, kay kamo kay eskwela, namoy nakit-an nga sa may nindot example. Namoy nakit-an nga static nga bag. Okay, static nga bag. Namoy nakit-an nga bag, okay? Tote bag. Say kana uso kay bag ron kana ano?
Tote bag, sir.
Tote bag kana ano? All right. Okay, uso mo na, di ba? For example, this costs, let's say, 600 pesos. And sa imong natigom nga allowance sa imong kinahatag sa imong parents is naabot siya og 550 pesos lang imong parta. And try kag palit ani nga bag. Do you think you got profit or you lost money? Something like that. Okay. All right. So we're going to find that out using a program, and for us to be able to build a program, we have to prepare a flowchart for it. So for example, okay, we'll start circle and then start the program. Next is the flow continue to a parallelogram that allows you to enter the income. So for example, your income is 550. Okay, and then next is flow. Next flow is to enter the cost. Pila ang tote bag. It's 600. All right. The next flow is a decision making. Diamond stating is income greater than cost. Kabantay mo na break ang iyang flow into two. There is a question whether or not the income is greater than cost. If yes, greater than. If yes, okay. If yes, it will display. It will perform calculate income minus cost. Meaning, iyang i-calculate ang income, which is 550 minus 600, and then display income. However, if no, it will display cost minus income. So 600 minus 550, or I think mali. Okay, let me repeat that real quick. And then display loss, and then end. All right, so let's check. Okay, bali jud lagi. Hold on. My apologies. Okay, going back. So we've entered the income and the cost, right? And then next is there is a split of flow whether or not the income is greater than cost. So if no, if yes, save jud akong flowchart. Sorry, save jud akong flowchart. Sige na lang. Libog si sir. Sensya. Alright. Save akong flowchart. No. And then yes. Alright, so again, the decision is being split into two, whether or not the greater income is greater than cost. So if yes, then calculate income minus cost. So 550 minus 600. If no, calculate loss as in cost minus income. So 600 minus 550. So display the loss. You lost 50 pesos. And then here, negative 50 pesos. Alright. So in this case, you'll be able to determine whether or not you lost money or you gain profit by creating a flowchart. So again, this flowchart is about finding the profit or loss by comparing the income and cost. You're just going to compare ang pila ang imuhang kwarta o pila ang cost sa product na ginapalit. And this is the flowchart for that. So here, this is the process for NORSU enrollment sa una. So this is before you guys, okay? Because karon nag-anak mo nga usabit ra mo file sa NORSU or something like that. But this is the process before, siguro mga just the enrollment before you. So katong enrollment nga before ninyo, this is the processes nilang buhatan mo, fill out silang form, so on and so forth. So start, okay? So they will go to norsu.edu.ph, the website. That's the first step every freshman will do. This is basically if they already passed the entrance exam. So this is the first thing that we're going to do. Next is select online enrollment. So they're going to click online enrollment sa NORSU website, and then select Bais campus or any campus na asa sila mo enroll. So if you're going to enroll in NORSU Bais, then select Bais campus 1 and 2. That's the third step. And then next is to select new student. So if you're incoming first year or maybe transferred from another school, you have to select new student. And after that, input your personal information. So we have LRN, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, gender, birth, date, and senior high school card. And then after that, input your contact information, your contact number, email address, Facebook link, home address. And then after that, you're going to select whether or not you'll be doing online or modular. So if modular, just click submit right away, and then wait for the college staff or university staff to contact you Or if you prefer online, you're going to input your internet connectivity, capability, gadget ownership, online learning, mode of education. And once you're done, click submit and then end. Alright? So, kani mas klaro na nga flowchart. If you are incoming first year and you still don't know what to do, using this flowchart, do you think you'll be able to follow the process? You'll be able to enroll even though you haven't tried it? Ma-enroll ba mo using this flow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alright, so basically the flowchart enables you to perform tasks easier. That's because everything is guided. So that's the same thing in computer programming. So for you to be able to create a program easier, you need to create a flowchart. Gamani mo siya flowchart. In that way, you'll be able to determine how the program is going to be developed. Okay? So for example, dire, karing sa calculate the sum of two numbers. If we're going to create a program that will calculate the sum of two numbers, so we will know that here, sa start, basically you're going to prepare your program, your compiler. And after that, you will let the user enter the first number. So pwede ka mabutang pitan mo nimong system, mo ni ang kana mabutang ka dito enter the first number. For example, naon yung pagsulat ang imong program. All right? And once the user entered, mabutang na paglain nga form or other nga line which says enter the second number. Alright, and after that, calculate. So obviously, dili na siya mo-display dire, but in the background, you're going to calculate num1 plus num2. Num1 and num2 is just variable. You can always change it to whatever you want. And then the result. Alright, so since you already know the flow of the program, you'll be able to create it even faster or easier. Okay, so this time let's try to understand the different symbols used and its meaning and how to use it in creating flowcharts. The following are some of the symbols used in preparing flowcharts. So these are not the only symbols used in flowcharts. Napay daghan kayo, but these are the most common and the ones that we'll be using sa atong course, sa atong subject. So here, in this column are the symbol, and then in this column will be the name, and then its function. So let's start from the first one. It's an ellipse or circle, and it means terminal, meaning start or end. It indicates the beginning and end of the program or process. So your flowchart should always start with this, start or end. Okay, again, this is called terminal, and it's for starting or ending the program. Next one is a rectangle, and that is called a process. It gives instruction that basically it contains instruction that is to be carried out by the program. So if you have an actual action or instruction nga yung ihatag, instruction or process that needs to be carried out by the program, then you're going to write it on a rectangle. Okay, and then parallelogram, it means input or output. It indicates the process of input and output of data. So if it will require the user, or it will require the program to let the user enter data, input of data, like first name, last name, right? Enter the first number, enter the second number, we will be using parallelogram. And then diamond, that is decision, used to split the flowchart sequence into multiple paths representing selection or repetition. So the decision, muna nang na yes or no, okay? So depending on the condition that is being set, then there is a split of flow of the program or the process. So going back sa atong example ganina, what do you prefer for the mode? What are your preferred mode? What is your preferred mode of education? If you want to be doing an online class, then proceed here. If you will be doing a modular class, proceed here. So nag-split ang iyahang flow. So that is decision. Next is this, a rectangle with column inside. Sakto ba ni? Basta kay ana siya guro. Let me illustrate it. A rectangle and then nay ana. Okay, that is predefined process. References another program within the program. So this indicates that there is another process here. And if you want to know more about the processes inside here, maybe go to that. Nana ba? So naa siya another process inside. So for example, let's say for example, magbutang lang tag usa. Dire. Kana ana na lang. For example, natay laing nga flow and let's call it face to face. Okay. What is your preferred mode of education? Face to face, online, or modular? So for example, sa online mo input kasi imong information, internet connectivity, so on, and then for modular here. However, if mag face to face, naana po in process. So if you want to indicate here that there is another process, then you're going to write it here. Let's say for example, another process is face to face enrollment. Okay, so once you see a symbol that looks something like this, meaning naa po in process for that particular, or nailaing flow in that particular process. And most of the time, maabot siya sa click submit and then end. Alright, so again, if you see a symbol that looks something like this, that means there is a separate flow of processes here. So, pwede ka mangita na pagkaglaing flowchart, maybe on the next, ug makita nimo na siya sa web page, maybe na sa next page, makita nimo ang flow for the face-to-face enrollment. Or if you're on offices, if you'll see a symbol that kind of look like this, then maybe it's on this another board. So, check lang nimo, na lang. Do you get the idea? So, basically, it's a predefined process. That means it is a separate process. An additional process inside this flowchart. Gets that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, brother.
Alright, and then circle is a connector. It is used to show a jump from one point in the process flow to another. So if you see a perfect circle, kuha na siya. Kumbaga, nakulangan na sa space. Nakulangan na sa space ang flowchart mo na kinahanglan niya putlon to continue on the next page. For example, muni ang artboard, or let's say the papel, kung asa nyo gibutang ang inyong flowchart. So for example, start here. Kaya na lang. And nakulang. So you're going to write a circle, and then you can either write an indicator. Okay, for example, kulang in yung space. Let me erase that. Sige lang. You'll need to create a circle and then indicate it with something. Let's say, for example, ganang kag A. Butangan ni mag letter A. That means if you're going to proceed to the next page, imo pong indicate asa siya, asa po sunod. So, for example, on your next page, you're going to write, you're going to draw another circle and then indicate it with whatever indicator. So since gibutangan mo indicator A diya, so let's proceed A. And then continue with the flow. And then end. Alright, so again, this connector is just to used to show a jump from one point in the process flow to another. So if nakulangan na kag sa papel, and you just need to cut the flow temporarily so that you can proceed to the next sheet, then you're going to use connector. Again, to use a connector, you need to create a circle and then put an indicator inside. So it could be either A or anything that you would like. You can either just enter the actual title of the flow, and then just make sure to do this to add the same thing on the next page. So add a circle and then add the indicator. In our example, we just use an indicator with letter A, and that means on the next sheet, pangitaon nato ang indicator that starts with A and then continue with the process. So that is a connector. And then of course we have the flow lines or arrows. It indicates the flow of the process. All right, so again, let's go back to our example and let's try to understand to fully understand good so the different meaning of the symbols. So let's start. So here, calculate the sum of two numbers. The symbols used are terminal, start and end. That's one. And then input and output. And then process. And then we have another input and output and then end. Okay? So enter the first number. So nganong parallelogram man ang atong gibutang? Anyone? Can you raise your hand? Anyone? Why is it that we use parallelogram? Anyone?
Indicate the number, sir. Or to state the number.
Remember, in input and output, it indicates the process of input and output of data. What do you mean by input, by the way? What do you mean by input?
Butangan siya niyo, sir.
Okay. It will allow the user, allowing the user to add certain data, diba? To enter a data. So since we are requiring the user to enter a number for num1, therefore we'll be using input. That's why we use this. Let me erase that para yung Alright. Okay. So since we are requiring the user to enter num1, therefore we will use input. Okay. Same for enter num2, right? So we will use input. Next. So as you can see, naatay flow. Next is calculate the sum as num1 and num2. Why is it that we use process? Anyone?
To get the answer, the input, sir, or to get the answer of the inputs.
Okay, so to calculate, diba? Somebody raise their hands. Kinsa to ni raise hand? Kinsa to ni raise hand?
Si Anthony, sir.
Di na po tulain. It's okay. But anyway, the reason why we use process is because we are carrying out an instruction. So the instruction is being given to the computer itself. Diba? Going back. Instructions that is to be carried out by the program. So since we are giving the program an instruction to calculate the numbers, so we will be using process. Again, if it's going to be an instruction to perform or an activity, then that is, we'll be using a process or a rectangle. Alright, and then next is another parallelogram. Why do this time will we use parallelogram to display the sum? Anong parallelogram ang pag-display sa sum? Gideon.
Kay ang kaning nga siya parallelogram, sir, mo man ay bot nga og input ug output, so silbi man naman siya process yan na pong output ang pilay sum mo ng kaning may gigamit.
Okay, all right, so since that's correct. So again, the function of a parallelogram is both input and output. So not just about entering data, it's also displaying data. So if the process involved displaying data coming from the program, we'll be using parallelogram. So this is called in. So this is output. And then after that, it's the end of the program. Then we will click end. It's not start but end. Save ko na. Alright, again, we use input. We use parallelogram to indicate that we are trying to input data to our program. And then we use square or rectangle to indicate that there is a process, there is an instruction needs to be carried out by the program, and then another parallelogram to display the output or to display the data sa atong program coming from the program. Okay, so let's have another example. Find the profit or loss by comparing the income and cost. So the symbols that we used are, we have terminal, we have input and output, we have process, and then decision and arrow lines. All right, let's check it one by one upon. So we use input. So I'm going to discuss in since we are trying to let the user enter a number. Therefore, these are both input. Okay, Anthony, do you have any question?
Sir, necessary pa ang quad, sir? Colors or ang shapes ra, sir?
Yes, all right. So that's the reason why, because not all the time din dapat natong butangan of instruction, di ba? So since this is a graphical representation of the flow. So murabag to eliminate the use of instructions, to eliminate the use of instruction and words kanang kaayo, which is a lot of people will just miss. Okay, the reason, maybe I haven't discussed the reason ano mang mag-flowchart na. A lot of people don't necessarily have dili ganahan mo basa of instructions. Di ganahan mo basa of daghan kayo nga mga list of instructions kumbaga. People more often mas ma-attract sila og naay graphical interface or graphical representation instead of reading the instruction. That is the reason why. So that's why we need to understand the symbols, the meaning of the symbols, and how to use them. Para so that we will understand what that particular process is for. Unsay dapat buhaton anang particular nga process. So for example, if we see parallelogram, that means we are trying to give or we're trying to input data. So if you'll see something like this, kanang matumog NBI, matumog maybe sa PSA, if you'll see a flowchart and naay sa symbol ni nani, therefore in this area you are required to enter data. So pwede mo fill out of form, either mo fill out mo form or inana. And then if you see decision symbols or diamond, that means you will be given a condition which to proceed or which part or which flow to proceed depending on the situation. Okay, so that's why, especially us, since we are future programmers, we need to understand this flowcharts, and not just because we are programmers, but we need to understand flowcharts because when you get to your 4th year, when you'll be doing your research program or research paper, you will be using flowchart most of the time. Again, flowcharts are used to eliminate the use of kind of paragraph na mga procedures, paragraph na instructions. Alright, did I answer your question, Anthony?
Yes, sir. How about the colors, sir?
Ay, colors ang question or symbols ganina? Colors ang
Colors
question.
and symbols.
Ay, sorry, ang colors wala lang. Wala rin problem. Ibutangan rin akong colors. Ibutangan rin ako ng colors kay gibutangan rin akong colors to make it look better. But in reality, there is no need for colors. Just a symbol.
Okay, sir.
Alright. Gideon, go ahead.
Sir, what if need og yes or no nga answer? Say symbol sa ana, sir.
That's the decision, diba? Again, whether if there is a flow, if na kay question which is that we will require either yes or no, then naay flow sa decision, right? Naay flow sa naay split sa flow, right? So lahi ang iyang flow kung ang iyang answer is no, lahi pod ang iyang flow kung ang answer is yes. So this is an example of that. So let's go back. So after we input the data, which is the input and cost, there is a question whether or not is income greater than cost. If yes, all right, then proceed here. If no, then proceed here. So this means depending on the situation, depending on the condition that is being set, there is a split of the flow of the process. So again, in this case, is income greater than cost? If yes, proceed here. Now, if the answer is no, dili siya pwedeng. If the answer is no, dili siya pwedeng dire moagi, because the flow indicates na kung answer is no, proceed here. That's the same case if the answer is yes, then proceed here. Kung yes ang answer, dili ka pwedeng moagi dire, but here. Ano ba? So when you see questions, when you see a condition that requires either to answer yes or no, then you have to follow on that particular flow depending on the condition that you have. So if you're on your case, you'll need to follow the yes, then proceed here. If no, then here. All right. So going back, So since we are trying to split the flow, we used a diamond. So kung naaga na split ba, kung naa na condition nga imong iset, you need to write it on, or you need to use a diamond, which is called decision. All right, and then what if the flow is yes, or if the question is yes, if the condition is yes, it's true, kumbaga, then proceed here. So why do we use rectangle? Anong rectangle atong gigamit?
It's a process, sir.
Another process, another instruction that needs to be carried out by the program. So since
Yes,
we are giving the program an instruction to perform, to calculate income minus cost, that's why we use a process. Again, kung atong instructan ang program ug unsay buhaton, then we will use it as a we will use rectangle. So question, sir, kani ga-instruct mo po ta dire? Ka-instruct man po ta dire ngano mang parallelogram? It's because the instruction is for the user. Dire ang instruction is for the computer. Okay, kaning enter income, dili man ang computer ang mo enter sa income, ang user man. Diba? And then enter cost, since we are requiring the user to enter the cost, not the computer or not the program itself. So that's why it's parallelogram. But if the instruction needs to be carried out by the program itself, that's why we will use process. And then after that, display the income. So another parallelogram, it's because isa lang ganin siya,
the output, sir.
output. Alright, so this is output, therefore we will use parallelogram, and then n. So we will use ellipse or ellipsis, I don't know. Alright, the same thing with if the answer or if the condition is false or no. Therefore, calculate loss as cost minus income. That's another process. Okay? And then display loss, there's another input, just like that. And then n. Alright? So here, the flowchart, NORSU Google Form enrollment for new students. So the symbols that we used are terminal, so that start and end, input and output, process, decision, and arrow lines. So again, we have start, then we have end. All right, and then here we have processes. So this time it is not these are not processes to be carried out by the computer, but instead it is processes, instructions that needs to be carried out by the student. Because flowchart is not just for programming, flowchart is for everything. It could be for people or for the program. All right. So since these are the instructions that needs to be carried out by the students, that's why we used rectangles. Do you agree? So since we are instructing the user to go to norsu.edu.ph, and then instructing the student to select online enrollment, instructing them to select Bais Campus 1, and then select new student. So since these are all instructions for the students, we use rectangle, right? Here, this is another instruction, but this time, this is an instruction to enter their personal information. So that's why we will use parallelogram. Same case with the contact information. Now, after they enter the contact information and their personal information, there is a split up decision. That's why we use a diamond. And then the question is that, what is the preferred mode of education? If the student selected modular, then click submit directly. So submit, since this is an instruction again, so that's why it's rectangle. But if they selected online, then they need to enter the following: internet connectivity, gadget, so on. That's why we use parallelogram. And then after that, as the flow suggest here, go to click submit and then end. All right, nagets ba?
Yes, sir.
Nagets, okay. All right, so let's try another. Wala ko gabutang o blank na space. Okay, hold on. Let me add a blank space para pwede tayo mag-try. Okay, so let's try. Kana mga simple activities lang sa, let's say for example, how to, oops. So we will try to create our own flowchart. Okay, so this time it's not going to be a program, but just any problem, daily problem now. So how to cook rice using, oh no, hold on. Diba one of your assignment before is to create katong step-by-step procedure?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Naay nag-answer of naay nag-instruct of how to use rice using rice cooker. Wala pa na ako nabasa yung assignment. Naay gabutan dito og
Wala siguro, sir.
but siguro siguro how to cook
Wala
rice.
na guys, sir.
Alright, okay. Now this is a good time to especially katong dili pa kabalo. Alright, and we will use flowchart. So first of all, let's try to indicate what are the processes involved. So we will start with symbol. So let's just put start. So by the way, it's not dikit siya ingon nga dapat start ra jud ang imong butang diri ha. You can either write the instruction kana how the title on your kana sa circle. In our case, let's just put start because this is for programming man. But again, if not all the time that you will always write start, you can either add the instruction, the title. So pwede natin ibutang sa atong ellipse ang how to cook rice using rice cooker. Alright, but para makasave tag space, so I'm just going to put start. Alright, and then flow. Okay, what's the first step? Okay, tabangan na ito.
Put a rice, eh?
How to cook rice using rice cooker. Okay, let's try to break down. Okay, atong una-unaon nga naay kauban natay classmate nga dili kabalo jud. So, what we're going to give them the step-by-step procedure. In programming, that's what we're going to do. Ang computer wala siya kabalo sa buhaton. So, we need to give them the step-by-step procedure. Okay? So, what's the first step? Pinakaunang buhaton siguro.
Yung kaldero, sir.
Let's do it one by one. Sige, Miguel, go ahead.
Lupihan sa nang kaldero, sir. Kuha na po bugas yung kilay start.
Okay. Kuha usad sa. So, limpihan na so ang rice cooker. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so unsa lang siguro nga symbol atong gamiton? Anyone?
Rectangle.
Rectangle. Okay, so since we are giving instruction to the user to perform a task, therefore we'll be using a rectangle. So the instruction is clean the cooker. Alright, so we will use rectangle. Alright, next. Say sunod. Anyone?
Put a rice, sir.
Silva. Okay, put a rice unsa?
Rice cooker.
Okay. Butangan na to rice ang rice cooker. Do you agree guys? Sakto ba na yung step? Anyone? Everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
and what unsa ato ibutang?
Sir, rinse usa.
Ha? Unsa ato ibutang?
Hugasan.
Triangle ang triangle.
Unsa nga symbol ba? Unsa nga symbol atong gamiton?
Rectangle, sir.
Rectangle.
Rectangle or gihapon, sir.
Rectangle, sir. Rectangle.
Rectangle ba or input output?
Ay, input out.
Ha?
Input.
Okay.
Input.
All right. For the meantime, since we are dealing with rice cooker man, di man siya data. All right. Again,
Process naman po.
we will use data siguro our input if we will be dealing with data. But since dili man siya data, although ga-add ta og something to the process, but still we will use kanila atong gamiton. So, sa to? Clean. Clean ba na? Tawagan na? Sige, clean ra. Sinabtanay ra ta. Clean the rice. Add the rice, sorry. Add the rice, di ba?
Mag-add pa, sir.
Add pa
Yung
rin.
rinse.
Add the rice. Okay. Unsang
Add
sukod?
the rice.
So, butangan na itong sukod po. So, we can either say add the rice and then 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 cup of rice, sakto ba 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of water?
Yes,
Sakto.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
1 kanara bitaw na ako 1 cup, 1:1, meaning 1 cup of rice. Ay sorry, sayo wala pa. Add sa rice pa man na. Okay, erase balik.
Address, sir.
Add rice pa man tanaw sa excited kita. Alright, so add the rice. After that, unsay sunod?
Rinse
Water.
the rice, sir.
Add the water. Add water sa ta.
Add water, sir.
Okay? So it's another process because this is an instruction to be carried out by the one who will be cooking. So after that, unsay sunod?
Cook.
Opa, erase na din.
I-rinse.
Dire na tamo butang sa ato ang ratio. So 1:1. Na ratio. So 1 cup of water, 1 cup of rice. Di ba? We have to be very detailed ba, di ba? Kaya basig na someone na ito nga dili kabalo. So at least after this, they will be able to. Pwede niyang i-print sa iyang kusina next time nga magluto sa rice cooker. Kabalo na siya kasama. Okay, and then next is sa sunod. Okay. So clean the water. Clean the water. Clean the rice. Kapila?
Kaduha.
Okay, 2 times. Alright.
Twice.
So dili siya proper pero butang na akong inana kaya rong madali na. And then after that, sunod.
I-rinse ang rice, sir.
Muna ni clean or rinse sakto. Murag mas maayo ang rinse.
Rinse, no?
Rinse the rice. Humanata na, for example, humanata sa sunod.
Ang
Trapuan, sir.
Trapuhan. Trapuhan sa nato. Dry. Sana wipe. Wipe
One shot, sir.
the cooker with
Before.
a dry cloth. Diba? Kaya dapat malang imuhang rice, imuhang cooker.
Yes, sir.
Kaya delikado siya kung basa. Alright? So, wipe the cooker with a dry cloth. And then after that,
Place na siya sa phone, sir.
place.
At
Okay? Place the
Rice cooker.
place. So, di siya cooker. Sige na, place the cooker
into the rice cooker.
into the rice cooker.
Ang kalaha, sir. Ay,
Kaya na, sir, ay.
Kanara, kita ra bitaw. Bisaya
Bitin
apa
na
ni
ganito, sir.
Bisaya apa ni mo, sir. Then after that,
Tama na, sir.
okay, turn
Turn
on.
on.
Okay?
Turn on.
Or set to cook. Alright. Wala pa tang human. At our goal here is to cook
Wag
man.
pagani.
Maghulat pa ta, alright? Okay. So after unsay sunod?
Wag pagani na rice cooker, sir.
Ha?
Ipansak sa...
Ipansak pa din.
Wag na
rice
Sige,
cooker
sige.
ako, sir.
Sige, butang na to. Sa pag-upload din. Alright. So, erase
Dili
mo tayo.
malutog, may pansa.
Wala din na pansak, no? Kanda kong problema. Gutom na mga
Wala na
tao.
ulit.
Alright.
Babra na, sir, ay.
Sir.
Okay, so next is plug the cooker and then set to cook.
set to warm. Ay.
Cook pa. Cook. Dili maluto mo hang. Set to cook.
Pinaluto.
Alright. Okay. So how do we determine if naluto na ba or dili?
O banting, sir.
Mala.
So,
One, sir.
Bagting, sir.
natay decision, di ba? Since we are determining whether or not na-cook na ba or dili, so there is a decision. So, unsa lang nga, naay decision, unsa man pagbutang? Ni ba?
Triangle.
Okay, triangle.
Ay.
Diamond. Because
Diamond.
we are checking, this time we are checking if naluto na ba or wala. So, unsa na to pag-check na naluto na kung
Mo-click na
Check
siya sa
the cooker, sir.
Warm?
if naset na siya to warm, di ba? So, if
Yes,
makita,
sir.
is the cooker
Is warm.
set to
Set
warm?
to warm.
Warm.
Okay, let me erase it.
To warm.
natay diamond because we are trying to split the flow. So is the cooker set to warm? That means luto na siya. So if yes, so by the way, if you say a diamond, that means it's a split of flow, di ba? So you always going to write either yes or no, or depending sa condition nga imong giset next to the arrow. So if this is the area for the arrow, you need to add yes. Okay? Butangan nimog yes. And then if this is no, butangan nimog no diha next to the arrow. Always do that. Or depende sa condition nga imong giset. So in this case, since this is a condition that needs to be answered by yes or no, then we will use yes, we will use no. So if yes, unsay next ang button?
Unplug na, sir,
Okay, unplug.
from the outlet.
Okay. Ano lang, unplug lang ang butang. Pero once you'll be doing it on your own, you need to be detailed. And then after that, serve, right? Serve. And then, end. So, since
Yes,
na-end naman tayo,
Hukad na siya.
circle.
Ellipse.
Serve naman. Alright? Nakaserve na. So, pwede na kaon. So, ganahan ka mo kaon. So, magamat ko kaglaing predefined nga flow dire. Katong ana. And then eat. So, meaning, how to eat na po. Magamat mo kaglaing flowchart, how to eat. So, murag, di na kayo sa...
That's na kayo, sir.
Alright. So, but you can always, that is the time that you're going to add a predefined process. Alright. Again, that is the kato, di ba? Nata example kanina na predefined process. Kani? So, if ganahan ka nga, the next step is to how to eat, then you can add another predefined process here that says how to eat. Alright? So, therefore, if makita mo kinani, meaning na ay additional flow na po.
Yes,
And
kung
this needs to
panalitan
be
mo and
created.
sa diya, sir, then imo ang butangan atong red ganing adat, pwede siya.
Pwede. Alright? So, for example, nakulangan ta sa space. So, kani instead nga, kita na patay dungag, so we can always... Although, by the way, don't be confused with the colors, okay? The color doesn't mean anything here. So, it's just circle. So, kita nga rin akong color to para mas, So, and then, for example, this one, this is a circle meaning nahutdan tag space, and we need to follow it up to the next page. Then we will end it with a circle, and then let's put an indicator. So, let's just say, let's put A. So, let's put A. That means ni-end siya sa A. And then on the next page, we will add another, for example, mo ni ang next page, we will add letter A diha na circle. So therefore, meaning this particular process is just this is a continuation from A here. Okay, na gets? If this is the next sheet.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, erase that. Let's proceed. So, end. Right? However, if wala pa na set ang cooker to warm, what? Sa may itong button?
Wait for mga minutes, sir.
Okay, wait.
Another minute.
Alright. So, we will add another flow here. And then, wait
2 minutes.
another minute. Ana lang. Wait another minute. So, after ni wait siya another minute, unsay buhaton usab? After siya ni wait og minute, unsay sunod?
I-check kung warm na ba.
Ay, check na po the worm. So, therefore, na ay loop. Mubalik na po ta dire. So, this is called a loop. Alright, mubalik ta is the cooker set to warm. If no paghapon, then wait another minute. But another minute, i-check na po niya, is the cooker set to warm. If no paghapon, wait another minute. This is what you call a loop. Until such time that the answer is yes, then only then that they can proceed to the next step, which is unplug, serve, and then end. I'm not sure if klaro ba kung mag-indot kay tanaw na ako ang flowchart. But I hope that you get it. So this is called a loop.
Sir.
So until such time that the condition is set to another flow, only then it will continue working on the same loop, on the same flow, until mausob ang iyang situation, mausob ang flow. So again, going back, after nato giset to cook, we will wait for probably a few minutes and then wait until the cooker set to warm. Now, is the cooker set to warm? If no, then wait another minute. And then after 1 minute, i-check na po niya, balik na po siya sa flow here. And then mo check na po, is the cooker set to warm? If still no, then wait another minute na po, and then go back, set to warm. So until such time that the cooker is not set to warm, then only makaproceed siya sa yes, and then unplug, serve, and then end. So this part right here is called a loop, because magbalik-balik man siya until such time that the condition will change. Alright? So nagets ba on how to create a flowchart?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to add another example, pero medyo madugay na ta, because napay next nga step. So for your assignment soon, you'll be creating a flowchart. So dili na sa how to cook rice using rice cooker, but any other process na po. So think of any process that you would like to share. Let's say how to for example, how to use an electric guitar, and how to plug in, how to how to use a camera, right? May camera sa inyo ha. How to use it, how to install a lens, something like that.
Asa ra na mo ibutang, sir?
Naray details unya dito sa ato ang Google Classroom. Maybe how to start a motorcycle, how to start a car. Inana. Simple lang ang mga activities. Ay lang po tong grabe kayo, okay? For example, how to cook rice cooker. Dako na magana na flowchart.
How to build airplane.
Ay grabe na kayo ron. Paper plane, how to build a paper plane. Inana. So make sure that on your flowchart, everyone who doesn't know how to do that will be able to do it based on the flowchart that you're going to prepare. Right, Anthony? May question?
Asa na may isulat, sir?
Ay, ibutaran ako ang detail niya sa Google Classroom. So most probably, actually, naay mga websites, if you will be using computers, naay mga website that will allow you to create flowchart easier. Later I'm going to show it to you. So one example is this, kanino? Online flowchart, kaning creately. So start mo, for example, start for free. I think we need to sign up. Anyway, once we sign up, let's try. May pwede rin na lang kung gagama na lang. Oy, why angay niya akong flowchart, oh. Biyaga ba kayo? It's okay. You can always use online flowchart. That's good.
Sir.
Na-upload sa Microsoft Word. Ito naman na-upload sa Microsoft Word. Later on, I'll give you instruction how to do it. Alright, so that is using flowchart. Napunay app.diagrams.net, you can also use this. Alright, so do you have any questions so far with the flowchart? Wala question? Oy, lost your connection. Okay, nawala akong connection kadali. Alright, do you have any question for flowchart?
No, sir.
That's good. Next is algorithms. Alright.
No, sir.
Medyo nawala akong connection, but I'm back. Alright, algorithm. That's the next step, diba? Going back, mas nalimot sa atong main topic. Our main topic here is planning the solution, diba? Program designing or planning the solution involve using the following planning tools. Flowchart is just one of them. The second one is algorithm. So after the flowchart, we will need to prepare an algorithm. So similar to flowcharts, an algorithm is a procedure for problem solving by executing a sequence of steps taken. Unlike the flowchart, however, the algorithm does not use symbols or any pictorial representation. Instead, the processes are written in lists. Okay? So going back, ang flowchart are intended to give instructions or to indicate the flow and the processes in a pictorial way, meaning gamit nato o graphics, gamitan nato pictures, symbols. Alright? Now, if you don't wanna do that, if wala mo kasabot sa, if you're just somebody who doesn't understand flowcharts, then there's also another way, which is also algorithm. Basically, it does the same purpose to give instruction, but this time it is written in lists. And this would be very familiar to you, the algorithm, since we've done it. Okay, ato na siyang nabuhat. So again, it serves the same purpose to give instruction, but instead of drawing symbols, the processes are written. Isulat na siya. So for those who prefer reading rather than looking at pictures, this is for you, algorithm. So let's try to compare the flowchart for calculating the sum of two numbers. So Moni, if this is the flowchart, now this is the algorithm of calculating the sum of two numbers. So we've already understood what this means. So for flowchart, start and then enter number 1, enter number 2, calculate the sum of naman 2, and then display the sum, and then end. End na siya. Alright? In algorithm, basically, it's a step-by-step procedure that is written in this. So does this look familiar to you? Familiar ba nila to?
Yes, sir.
Asa man na to ni?
Yes, sir.
Asa man na?
Una activity, kuan sir, katong
Assignment.
Ang assignment, sir.
Alright. So the reason why I ask you to do that, katong assignment, is because it is just part of our lesson, which is now. Kato inyong gibuhat nga step-by-step procedure are called algorithm. So this is the algorithm for this problem. Our problem is our goal is to calculate the sum of two numbers. So step 1, start. So same na siya, diba? And then step 2, enter the first number. So basically it's just the same here. And then step 3, enter the second number. Let's call it num1. Again, num1 and num2 is just variable. We'll talk about variables in the future, but the reason why we use num1 and num2, ngano gani gamitan nato og variable? Okay? If you can remember. Ngano
Para makalculate siya, sir.
go ahead, Jane Chris. Ngano gani gamitan nato og variable?
Para makalculate.
Okay, that's our goal, right? The reason why it's because the instruction here is only to enter the first number. We didn't say enter number, let's say enter 9. No, we didn't say that. We only say enter the first number. Therefore, the number that the user may enter may differ, may vary. Pwede mausog, pwedeng lahi-lahi ang number nga iyang i-enter, di ba? Since lahi ang number nga pwede nang i-enter, therefore, we will use variable. So the variable stores the number that the user will enter. So if you can remember back in your back in your algebra, we have variables x plus y. Because we don't know the value of these variables, that's why we use, since we don't know the value of these variables, that's why we use letters to represent them. So that's why we use num1, num2. This is just variables. So you can write ug unsa inyong ganahan nga variable. Pwede mo gamitag x, pwede mo gamitag y, or any letter or any words. You can always change it according to whatever you want. So in our case right now, let's just use num1 and num2. And then step 4, calculate the sum as num1 plus num2. Alright, it's the same thing here. And then step 5, display the result. And then step 6 is end. Alright, so the algorithm is just the same as flowchart, but instead of using symbols to represent each process, each flow, we use text. So it would be easier to understand, especially to those people na wa pa kasabot og flowchart. However, not everybody is gonna read step-by-step procedures. Dili tanan ganahan mo basa og may kani dali lang ni basahon kay pila man ni 6 steps man. What if there are hundreds of steps? Is it gonna be something that you will enjoy reading? Diba? So to to make sure that people will really have to understand the flow, so you can either present it using flowchart or algorithm. Alright? So I don't necessarily have to discuss this, right? Diba? Because basically it's the same case with flowchart, but instead of using symbols, we are using text. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Alright? Nagets ra ba ning area part? Go ahead, Anthony.
Yes. Kung sir, na ako question ra sir.
Mhm.
Kung sir, kanang regarding anong mga sa flowchart, kuha na siya sir, kana included po na sa mga sa gawas like kuha na to ka sa foreign countries?
Oh, yes. Flowchart is basically everywhere. Basically,
Standard yun na, sir.
standard ang flowchart. That's right. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Like I said, even if it's not just in programming, by the way, we only discuss this because it is part of planning when it comes to programming. But it's not just about programming as well. Like I said a while ago, even offices, mga offices, um, even offices have their own napod sila flowchart usahay ilang ginabutan sa ilang offices because flowchart is basically is a that's right, it's a standard representation of giving instruction using graphics. And then we also have algorithm. Now the algorithm, however, is mostly used for programming. So this is called because the word algorithm you cannot use it for any other another situation but only for programming. So that's why we have here. Pero this is very familiar. It's because this is probably more common compared to flowchart in all offices because not everyone can read flowchart man. Only those people with specialized skills can understand flowchart. But for algorithm, step-by-step procedure, don't necessarily need to have a programming knowledge for you to understand algorithm. You just have to read it, and then based on what you read, do it. Diba? But flowchart is siguro just to add up to something, to give an instruction using graphical code. Because again, the reason why we use flowchart because not everybody is very fan of reading step-by-step procedures. So that's why we use flowchart to encourage them to read the instruction anyway. Alright? So another sa itong example ganina, find the profit or loss by comparing the income and cost. So it's the same case with our flowchart, but this time we have step-by-step procedure. So that is the first step, start. Step 2 is to enter the income, and then step 3, enter the cost. Step 4, compare the value of income and cost. Is income greater than cost? So we have here that, kana? If yes, calculate profit as income and cost, kana? If, I'm sorry, sayop ako ang arrow. Erase. Kana? If, okay, if yes, calculate as income minus cost. Else, same rigapon ana, calculate loss as cost minus income. And then step 6, display results for income or loss. So these are both step 6 and then end. Alright, so it's the same case, but this time instead of breaking it down to different symbols, all the procedures are done using steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Right? And then lastly, it's the same case here. Step 1, go to www.norsu.edu.ph, go to online enrollment system, and then step 5, input personal information here. Step 6, input contact information. Step 7, choose mode of education. And then step 8, if modular, proceed to step 9. Else, meaning if online, select online. So if this is step 8, and then step 9 is submit. Alright, do you have any questions so far with the algorithm? None? Okay, so just to give you an idea, these are the only planning platforms or planning tools that we're going to learn today. But just to give you an idea, there are other ways to napulain ng mga planning tools na ay ginatawag og Pseudocode. Okay? But we're not gonna do that for now since not all of us na ay background in programming. So maybe pseudocodes are useful once we already understand a few things about programming already. Kung kana coding ba. So basically pseudocodes are mura ka gagama sa code sa imong program, gagama na coding ka, but instead of writing the syntax, computer syntax, you're just writing words. So let me show to you pseudocode. Let me try to Google pseudocode versus source code. Yan na. Let's try to compare how pseudocode looks like. Okay, tara. This is a very good example for a program. What do you mean by pseudocode? Makita ba? Let me zoom it in. Alright. So this is the algorithm of the program. So the algorithm, but this time it's not being written as step by step. But basically this is the actual code. So using, I think this is using Python, but it's the same case with C++. So mo ni ang code sa imong program here. And pseudocode is something like this. So it's the same structure as the actual code, but this time on pseudocode, you're just using words. Okay, for example, for I is equal to 1 to n do. So this is the code for your programming. And meaning ana is kani, i-examine niya ang a to an. Alright? So basically, it's just writing the function of the codes. So that's why it's called pseudocode, meaning pseudo is false code. So you're just going to write a false code. Meaning ano false man, sir? Kanang dili siya tinuod nga coding ba? So it's just something to prepare once you already, in that way you'll be able to code it manually. So for example, kabalo kang, for example, you know how programming works, but you don't know how to write it in the actual programming language. So that's why for us to learn about pseudocode, we need to have a background in programming. So that's why I didn't include it because wala pa man. But then again, pseudocode meaning false code. So if this is the actual code for the program, this is what a pseudocode means. Instead of using the computer syntax, we are using words to describe this. Alright, so again, medyo research ang subton if you don't have background with coding yet, but soon, once we get to the coding, you'll be able to understand it. But pseudocode is one of the planning tools for programming, and we just didn't include it because we haven't done any programming before. Alright, so for the meantime, you will be working on creating a flowchart and algorithm for your future assignment for this week. Alright, so if no question about algorithm, let's proceed. So let's go back to our main topic, which is the programming or program development lifecycle. The next stage is to coding the program. So the next stage is to transfer the solution to the problem in the computer program. You will interpret the logic from the prepared flowchart or pseudocode into the actual programming codes based on which programming language you are going to use. Okay, so after you've already prepared your flowchart, already prepared the algorithm, and if you have your pseudocode, the next step is to write it into an actual code using programming language that you are going to use. So in our course, it's going to be C++. But again, the next stage, once you already prepared all the planning tools, siyempre, but at that point, kabalo na kaon sa mo pa program ang imong system. Since you already structured the program by creating the flowchart. So after that, you're going to code a program. So coding the program operates grammatically somewhat like the English language. There are sets of rules called syntax. Okay? Kato akong ipakita niyo ganina. This one right here. So it's like English. Mura siya English. Okay, let me show you a C++ program. Kani akong ginama na lang. Ginama sa akong previous class. Hold on. Kana sayon na rabe. Let me show to you how a program works. Okay, so this is an example of a C++ program. So this program will just allow the user to enter their full name. Okay, coding the program operates grammatically somewhat like English language. There are a set of rules called syntax. So, diba, we study English language, or basically any language like our own, which is Filipino, and we all know that these languages have their own set of rules. Unsa tawag nato sa rules in language? For example, English. Unsay tawag na to ana nila? The set of rules of the language. What do you call it? Anyone? What do you call by the rules, the set of rules for a language? Something like that. Unsay tawag ana? Kinsay makahatag og answer? In computers, they are called syntax. In language, in human language, they are called wala. It's called
Grammar, sir.
grammar.
Fiction.
Programming language.
Alright, so diba, we need to follow a certain set of rules when we speak. Okay, these are called grammar. Now, in coding, it's called syntax. So there are a set of rules called syntax that determine the program will, if the program will work and how is it going to work. Now we need to make sure that we have the proper syntax in order for our program to work. So this is an example of a C++ program. Okay, so we'll discuss it in our next meeting. Don't you worry, we'll start coding. Ang ubang klase gasugod sila coding. Operational conditional statement na sila. Pas lang kayo. I'm not sure how they do it. But kita hinay-hinay lang ta. Let's take one step at a time because this is fundamentals of programming and it is one of the most important. Although pinaka-easy na siya nga programming, but it's the most important because once you already have a foundation on how to work with C++, it would be easier for you to learn a higher programming language like Java, PHP, Python, and more. Right? So let's try to run this program. Simple din kayo, execute, compile, and run. Alright, so it will just say enter your full name. So if we enter my full name, let's say Juleus Publico, and then it will say Juleus Publico. As easy as that. Okay, let's change that. See out. Let's add hello. Alright, so for example, let's try to run it again. Execute, compile, and run. Wait, Tessa, nalimot si sir. Okay, tara. Okay, enter your full name. Let's say Julius Publico. Then it will say hello, Julius Publico. Alright, so basically, how did the program able to perform this? It's because we're able to create, we're able to enter proper syntax. Otherwise, if na mga type sa'yo, let's say for example, katong ganina akong nabuhat because I was taking PHP programming language. So for example, nasayo po because this is for PHP, na I dot. Alright, let's try to run that. Execute, compile, and run. Then it will not run. It will give you an error stating that there is something wrong with your program. So meaning we've kanang nakabuhat ta og wrong grammar or wrong syntax. So we have to fix that depending on the programming language that we use. So katong gay na save ko because sa PHP kung mo add kag sentence sa imong variable, you need to add a period. But since this is C++, wala na siya. So see, there is difference between programming language. Alright, so that is coding the program. Although each programming language has different syntax, okay, case in point, from one to another, the concept of implementation is usually similar. Therefore, learning multiple programming languages is not going to be very complicated. So that's the reason why C++ is the first thing that we learn during your programming one is because it's the easiest programming language to learn. But all of the programming language have similar approach. So all those lahi-lahi ang yung syntax, but the same ang yung approach. That's why when you're going to learn another language, programming language, it wouldn't be very hard. So it's the same thing with Kabalot tag Bisaya, diba? We all know how to do a Cebuano dialect. But it would be easier. It would also be, it's not going to be very difficult for us to learn Filipino or Tagalog. I'm sorry, Tagalog. It's because Bisaya and Filipino or Cebuano or Filipino has their own parehara siya approach. So what do you mean by that? So we all know unsay Tagalog. For example, kung naatay Bisaya nga word for baso, ana, naputay Tagalog nga naputay Tagalog nga translation sa baso. Alright? So, kung naatay mostly similar man, but that's the idea ba? That's the general idea. Since most programming language have their own, all programming language has the same, although lahi siya og syntax, but pareha ra ang iyang implementation. So that therefore, learning programming language is very easy, and that is coding the program. Now, these are some of the tools needed to start writing a program. So what are the things that we'll be needing to start coding? So first is we'll be using either a text editor or an integrated development environment. But we'll try to skip text editor. As much as possible, we will use integrated development environment is because IDEs are more robust. Kompleto na siya. Otherwise, if you will be using text editor, napatay daghang install sa atong computer. Kinahanglan mo install og separate compiler. However, kato akong gipa-install ninyo nga DevC++ and CSIT Droid, they're called integrated development environment, and they both have text editor and compiler. So para asa day ang text editor? Since programming codes are just text, you need software that will allow you to write the codes. The Notepad is a standard tool used in industry, but there are more advanced options like Notepad++ or Sublime Text. But we will try to skip text editors. We'll proceed to the next one, which is Integrated Development Environment. IDE is a software application that offers extensive implements for software development. This is a more efficient way of writing programs because it offers more features and control in the program. So using text editor, medyo lisod siya, and you'll need to install another applications like compiler separately. But IDE usually have their own text editor and compilers. Now, para sa ang compiler. Compiler is a program that converts the syntax into a machine code form so that it can be read and executed by the computer. Most IDEs already have built-in compiler, so there's no need to install another one. However, if you are using text editors, you need to save the file and run it on a separate compiler for it to work. So the compiler is the one who will be running your program. So kato atong example kanina. Okay, this is the CXX Droid. DevC++. Have you installed DevC++ kato na mga laptop already? Naka-install na ba? Sakit na akong ilong.
Cellphone mo na mo, sir.
Cellphone. Okay, it's okay. The CXX Droid is also compiler. It's the same case with DevC++, but DevC++ is for Windows. For cell phones, CXX, kasakit akong ilong. Okay. And then, basically, this is the text editor. So again, IDEs have their own text editors and compiler built in. So what do you mean by compiler? So this is what a compiler looks like. This is the compiler. Basically, it is the one responsible for running the program. As you can see, pag run na to, nasa separate na window nga mo-open. This is the compiler for C++. So don't you worry because DevC++ and CXX Droid na siya built in the compiler, which is this. But if you will be using text editor, you need to install this separately. So muna magparan sa atong program ang compiler. Go ahead, Anthony.
Sir ba, kung magama na ka ng program, sir, sa cellphone, pwede siya mo play po sa computer, sir?
That's true. Okay. The reason why, alright, once you save a file through computer, yeah, most probably yes. But CXX Droid, as we have experienced, muga naman siya because once you save your file, it's gonna look something like this. Nasa i-save na tulo ka file. Every time that you're going to save your project, the imong program, mo save siya tulo ka file, which is this.
Same format ra, sir.
Okay. Lahi. Alright. Na ito nga same, may usa nga dili. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see it. Muna ni although i-zoom in ako ang text mo or magud hapon. Okay, let me take a screenshot na lang para ma-zoom in ako. That's a good question, Anthony. So this is how it's gonna look like. Okay, so if ang iyong program work ba siya, if inyo gigama sa cellphone, work ba siya sa PC. So every time that you're going to save a file, whether it's gonna be using computer or cell phone, it will save three files. Na ay .cpp, na ay .dev, o na ay .exe. Now, the CPP is the programming language, which is the C++. Therefore, this can be used with any platform that has C++ program. So, using this file, pwede nimong i-run ang imong program using computers or using cell phone. However, the dev C++, kaning dev, is only for dev C++. So, once you click this, it will let you open the dev C++. And then the exe is a direct compiler. So, kabante mo ubang mga applications sa Windows na siya .exe, meaning if you click on it, it will run directly. And otherwise, kaning CPP and dev C++, you'll need to open up your IDE for it to work. But this right here will run directly to the compiler. Murabag, kani ba? Ang exe is this one. Kung iranan nimo execute, compile and run, kanina amo gawas mismo, kani siya. Alright? So, to answer the question, if mo run ba? Yes. If you're going to open up cplap, kaning nga file. But this one right here, kaning DEV, dili na siya mo run sa imuhang cellphone because this is for dev C++ na file. Para pwede mo siya ma-edit sa dev C++. But this one right here can be edited with any C++ IDE. And this one, .exe, is for the compiler. Kani siya. Murag direct na siya nga run ba. Right? Did I answer your question, Anthony?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, not a problem. Alright, so let's proceed because we only have a few minutes. And then, alright, that's it. Compiler. A compiler is the program that converts the syntax. So you don't have to worry about this because I asked you to install dev C++ or CXX Droid. Those two are already a combination of text editor and compiler. And nasa additional ng mga features like this. We'll discuss it in the future once we get to our programming. Actually, next meeting we will start discussing C++. Alright, and then last, testing the program. Testing the program means evaluating its accuracy. Usually involves these phases. So once you're already done with your program, you need to test it to make sure that there is no error and it will work at its best. There are three phases: test checking, translating, and debugging. So I'm just going to send this presentation file to you later on, but I'm just going to give you a quick run since it's already 11 and maybe some of you have a class to go. So test checking is an informal manual test that allows programmers to spot errors that may keep the program from working correctly. So if you're already very good at programming, test checking is just running through your codes and try to spot an error based on what you see. Kung ma-educate ka programming, test checking is about kuan lang, imurang i-run ang imong tan-awon ang imong code to see if there are errors. Naka na bang tan-aw, kani sayop na siya. So I'm going to change it. So that is called test checking. So only those programming experts can do that. But don't you worry, if you're not really good at programming yet, just like me, naatay translating. It's a programming language processor that verifies the proper use of the programming language by showing all the syntax error alerts called diagnostics. Alright, so let me show you an error. Let me add an error. Kana siya. Ang semicolon. Tangtango rin ako to semicolon. And let me show you what diagnostic means. Let's try to run it. Compile and run. Here, na ay error nga magawas. And this is the diagnostics. Okay, na error here. Expected semicolon before cout. So, ana siya nga, expect siya magbutang tag semicolon. So, nasa suggestion how to fix it. So, therefore, if we're going to add semicolon back and then save it, because sure, if nabasa niyo, but it says here, expected semicolon. So, basically, it actually tells you what to do to fix it. Right? That's the good thing about diagnostics or translating. So, once we save it, execute, compile, and run, and here, no more error. Alright, so that is called translating. Basically, it shows you the syntax error alerts. It's called diagnostics. So what everything that you'll see at the bottom are called diagnostics. And then debugging is a term utilized widely in programming. Debugging implies recognizing, finding, and fixing bugs, mostly by executing the program. Actually, the one that we just did, na atong gibuhat, is called debugging. You'll see errors here. Basically, mabalaan mo mga error by running the program, and then you have to pick. For example, there are multiple lines of errors. For example, let's have another error here. Tawag mo semicolon. We're going to run it. Na siya mga errors. Kana. So it says here there are 2 errors now. Doon nakabok ang iyang error, and basically that is called debugging. You're going to find errors by testing the program. That is the most commonly used. It's because, especially right now, naara pila 14 lines of codes. But if you're going to do an actual program, it could take hundreds or maybe thousands or maybe tens of thousands of lines of codes. And it would be very hard to spot one by just looking at it. So that's why we have to run it to recognize or to find bugs or errors. And that is called debugging. Okay? And then lastly, documenting the program. Documentation is a written detailed report of the programming phases and specific information about the program. This includes the source and nature of the problem, and a narrative description of the program, planning tools like flowcharts and pseudocodes, and testing results. So this is where your research paper skills will come into place. So this is really important. Once you get to your 4th year, it's called capstone project for IT and ComSci. Oh, capstone rather. For IT, it's called capstone projects. Kung sa high school, it's called research program. If sa business, it's called ito tawag na sa business gani, kami gama sa libro.
Journal, sir?
No, not specific. Sa tawag ato. I forgot, but naa siya term. Kanang i-check nila kung ang business mo, for example, maggama og Jollibee sa Bais sa una. So nasa buhaton nga research.
Inventory?
No,
Business plan, sir.
dili pa sa business plan. It's okay. I'm going to send it to you. Pakainom po okay. Probably di na po katulog ang naghinuna-una. Joke. Later on, I'm going to send it to the GC. I forgot. Na-stop sa untang. Na-step sa untang. Ako ang dila. Pero it's okay. I'm going to send it. But in IT, it's called capstone project. So in education, like in education or any other courses, they're called research paper, thesis, but in IT it's called capstone project. So the last is documenting the program. So I'm not going to talk more about it because I'm not really expert in creating capstone. I'm expert on Sir Alejo, our head, and Ma'am Naida, our dean. They are expert in doing capstone projects. But here it is. Testing the program includes the following, and that is the Pdlc program development life cycle. So, do you have any questions before we end? Go ahead. Katong na question.
Sir, ang mga programming language ba, lain man na kaning mao-mao sa mga variables kipang gamit or lain every programming language.
Okay. Variable as a whole is the same because the variable name you can decide kung saan mo ba. Ang mga variables, pero tanang programming language na ay variable. If that's what you're asking, tanang nga programming language na siya ay variable skill. That is to make sure that you'll be able to allow users to enter data on their own. However, as for the variable text, variable names that you'll be using, it would be totally up to you, man. So, pwede ka magamit ng X, Y, Z, letters, numbers, words, so long as you'll be able to remember that particular variable all throughout your program. So, to answer your question, if na-variable ang tanan ng mga programming languages, yes. Pareha ba? It would be totally up to you. But yes, pwedeng pareha because the variable name is something that you'll decide. Mura kag naghatag og ngalan sa imong iro ba? Sa kung sara pwede mo ihatag. But this time, instead of dog, you're trying to name a variable. So, for example, atong ganina example is num1 and num2. You can use that in C++, you can use that in PHP, on Java, on Python, or any programming language. You can use whatever you want. Ano lang. Did I answer your question, Gideon?
Yes, sir. Kanang maoras na sir no kanang mga integer, mga
Okay.
katong chart.
Okay. So that's what that's called data type. Okay, the variable, I'm sorry, the char, integer, sa pamailain, string, characters, ano man, boolean.
Boolean.
All right, those are called data types. And yes, it's going to be the same case with most programming languages. PHP na ana, ang Java na ana, ang Python na. All right, and that will be discussed maybe next week. In our next meeting, we will start discussing our C++, and then we're going to take all the things that needs to be learned about programming one by one. So that includes kanang gisgotan ni Gideon karon, the variables, data types, and then conditional statements. All of those we'll be discussing it one by one until such time that at least if di mata expert kaayo, at least kabalo na ta how programming works and how to write code. Because once we already know that kind of variables, integers, data types, once we already know about that, it would be easy for us to understand or to learn any other programming languages. Okay? All right. So do you have any more questions, guys? Before we end? Wala na?
None,
Okay
sir.
na, sir.
All right. Okay, so if none, again, buragi ko katulog og dili na ako mansiran tong test. Is ito wag ato. All right, it's okay. Ako tong isa niyo later on. So for the meantime,
Spreadsheet again, sir.
dili. Basta na ka na bang tawag sa research paper? Okay, let's Google na to.
Boy, sir.
Research paper for
Ledger?
business. Dili.
Business plan na kayo, sir.
Dili. Basta, ako rin isan later on kay medyo nakulangan na to sa oras. Basig na pa mo yung klase. Alright. Basta. Alright, kindly turn on your cameras and I'm gonna stop the attendance now. The blanco si sir.